I'm super excited that this season's sponsor for limited supply is Fulfill.io. I heard about Fulfill almost 10 years ago. I invested in the business in 2016 or 2017. I put in $550,000 because I loved the product and what they were building, and I love the CEO, Sharoon. He's an amazing founder, really listens to customer feedback. You can email him and get product updates anytime you want. It's really incredible. Fulfill.io is an ERP system built for e-commerce businesses. Think of them as NetSuite for e-commerce specifically. They work with huge e-commerce businesses from Hexclad to Missouri to Caraway to Cadence. It's really an incredible product. It really helps simplify your business when the complexity gets to a level of detail where Excel doesn't work for you anymore. So through Fulfill, you'll be able to manage your orders, you'll be able to manage your accounting, you'll be able to manage your inventory, understand what's low and what's high, when you need to place another PO. You'll be able to manage your bill of materials and build bundles. It's really an incredible piece of software. Once your business starts getting really complicated and you can't manage it via Excel spreadsheets, it could be complicated for so many reasons. It could be complicated because you've got a lot of channels that you're selling through, or you've got a lot of different SKUs, or you've got a lot of different manufacturers. Once it gets to the point where you can't manage it through spreadsheets anymore, that's really where Fulfilled shines. Go check them out. It's fulfill.io.
All right, welcome back to Limited Supply, Season 8, Episode 10. Today we've got an awesome guest, actually two awesome guests. We've got Lukas and Trenton from OpenStore. We did an episode last season where we went through and grilled the founder of Postscript. And so when we asked our community who else we should grill in the vendor space, OpenStore was the next most voted one. So today we're doing exactly that. We've got Lukas, who runs operations across the board. And then we've got Trenton, who's been there since the beginning, and I believe he's the president now. I'll let them introduce themselves in a second. Also, just before we get started, Trenton was kind enough to offer 10 people who qualify for an OpenStore offer a free trip for 2 people down to Miami. And essentially, it's a business and pleasure trip. So you put your offer in on my.open.store/limited supply. If you qualify for an offer, the first 10 businesses, you will win essentially 2 tickets to go down to Miami, spend a weekend there, talk to the OpenStore team, talk about the offer, the acquisition, etc. You can meet with their teams. You'll get to enjoy the whole weekend exploring the city. You learn about exit strategies, valuation exercises, and diligence processes. And you get an immersive experience with the operations teams to see exactly how they run the brands at OpenStore. Highly recommend you do it. Remember, it's a non-binding offer. So even if you put your info in, I've actually done this before just to see what comes back. As long as you qualify for an offer, you're open to get this trip to Miami. Seems like a no-brainer to me. But all that said, let's get started on the episode, and we'll pass it over to the OpenStore team to introduce themselves.
Sure. You want to go ahead?
Sure. I'm Trent. Yeah, I'm the president of OpenStore. I've been here from the start, and so I've seen, through the massive growth journey that we've been on, and also, through the portfolio of brands we've onboarded. I have the pleasure of working with folks like Lukas and the rest of the team to support growing these brands in-house.
Awesome. Yeah, it's great to meet you, Nick. It's a pleasure to talk to you today. My name's Lukas. I'm our head of business operations here at OpenStore. What that means is that I get to work with our great team here to build the technology, the processes, and the teams required to manage our portfolio of direct-to-consumer brands. And we're big fans of the podcast, and so it's really great to be with you and answer any questions and talk about what we're doing here at OpenStore.
Awesome. Yeah, I feel like we've had Keith on the podcast before, and so now excited to get in with the actual operators. I doubt Keith is in Facebook Ads Manager or logging into Shopify. So just for a quick background, for those who may not know, maybe Trenton, since you've been there since the beginning, what's the story behind OpenStore? What's the mission for the company? What's the vision for the company? Obviously, OpenStore launched at a time where, raising money was a lot easier than it feels like it is today. So yeah, what was the mission and the vision of OpenStore and the story?
Yeah, so OpenStore really started out of this idea of there's over 2 million businesses built on Shopify. Most of these businesses are too small for private equity. They're not growing quick enough for venture capital. And a lot of these entrepreneurs, they're spending 60 hours a week running supply chain, customer experience, biz ops, marketing, like all facets of what it takes to run a e-commerce business. and then they are looking to exit eventually, and they don't really have great options. They're either expensive, they're not. There's no surety to it. They take a lot of time, and so we really wanted to serve entrepreneurs and fill that void in the market. So, OpenStore's mission is to inspire entrepreneurs and shoppers to find something new, and for entrepreneurs, that means giving them, certainty of an offer and an exit when they're ready to move on to what's next. And, we've seen a lot of these entrepreneurs go on to start other businesses, and that's fantastic to see. And then for consumers, that means increasing the discoverability of these products. And so taking a brand that created something special and working to amplify that and continue to grow that and bring it to more consumers in-house.
Amazing. Do you feel like the vision or the mission has changed since it started a few years ago?
No, not really. I mean, it's taken us time, obviously, to build a portfolio of direct-to-consumer brands that we're really excited about. The first challenge we had to solve as a business was, how do we deliver fair and competitive offers to, these merchants that have limited data, sometimes sparse data, not horribly long operating track records. And that was the first challenge that we probably spent the first, 6 months of Open Store figuring out how to solve. We've been able to do that, and now we own and operate the largest portfolio of Shopify businesses in the world, and we do so across categories. And it's just a fantastic space to be building in.
Amazing. And how does the open store model work? So you basically you buy a bunch of brands, optimize them. I'm assuming from a marketing standpoint, supply chain standpoint, cut some costs, increase the margin. Is that pretty much the model?
Yeah. So if you think of, one of these DTC entrepreneurs, they typically will start with developing or sourcing a product. They'll build a brand around it. They'll activate it across some marketing channels. We find most people start on Meta. Maybe they expand to Google. Maybe they do a little bit of CRM, but they typically, have left those channels pretty under optimized, and they haven't looked at channels outside of Meta. And so by virtue of running a large portfolio of brands, we're able to bring in channel experts across all marketing channels, SEO, TV, Meta, TikTok, Google, affiliates, like things these merchants typically don't do, while we're also able to lower the cost side and improve margins. And we can do that through the scale efficiencies we get by consolidating, fulfillment at one partner location, working to, improve manufacturer relationships, working to never run out of stock by being really accurate with demand forecasting and planning. And that goes a long way for these small businesses. If we can add, additional points of margin, that then we can reinvest in testing new channels on the marketing side.
Totally. Okay, cool. And so essentially bringing together brands, you guys are sort of bringing the, I guess, like channel experts across, but like channel experts, I put in quotes for everything. The channel expert, basically the GM of supply chain, the GM of Facebook, the GM of Google, and you're able to scale this across all the brands that you guys acquire. Is that right?
Yeah, that's exactly right. Like a good example is supply chain. Our head of supply chain, David, opened some of Amazon's first fulfillment centers, and then has been in startup since. And bringing that level of expertise to these small DTC brands is really unheard of.
Yeah. And before we get into how this sets Open Store apart, how does actually, I guess there's Open Store regular, then there's Open Store Drive. What are the different lines of Open Store that exist that somebody could participate in?
Yeah, Drive and Acquisition are our two core products.
Okay.
Acquisition is, exactly as it sounds. We'll acquire the business outright and give merchants the freedom to either focus on what's next, whether that's a new, business venture or something entirely different. Drive is for, a segment of merchants who aren't quite ready to step away from their business, but they need, help running it. And so we'll end up running end-to-end operations for the business with guaranteed income that we pay back to the merchant. And so it really allows us to start to build relationships with merchants. And what we found coming out of that, initial Drive cohort that we had is, multiple of those businesses ended up turning into acquisition offers. If you think of just the idea of selling your business, it's a big decision. You built the thing from scratch. You probably spent years toiling on it. And, it's not likely that you're going to wake up one day and be like, hey, I want to sell. And so it's important to us to build those relationships with entrepreneurs, get them more comfortable with the open store model, and then turn those into acquisition offers, later in the business's history.
Got it. And have you ever had an instance where you've promised somebody a guarantee, but then their actual numbers came in lower?
Yeah,
Or
it's a
you've had to
great
basically
question.
overpay? Yeah.
We have. I mean, the benefit of a portfolio is, those things cancel each other out. It's obviously hard to forecast, the where these businesses are going to be years into the future. There's macroeconomic factors, there's platform challenges, there's competitors that come into the space. But we've gotten really good at that over time. And, we feel like we're able to give merchants, a fair offer, whether it's for acquisition or drive. And then, the good thing about the programs is, we then bear the downside if it doesn't go, as planned.
Totally. So drive is essentially you guys take over, you run the business, and you guarantee a monthly payment back to the owner. Is
That's
that for a
exactly
set
right.
period of time or an indefinite amount or as long as
It's
somebody
a
wants?
Yeah, it's a 12-month term. Obviously,
Okay.
it takes time to get to onboard the business, to optimize things on the supply chain. Like those things don't happen overnight, and so we want to make sure the business is set up for success. And to do that, there is kind of a predetermined amount of time that it takes. And then after that, if the merchant wants to renew, that's an option. If they want to sell, like a few of our merchants have, then we're able to give them an offer with even higher confidence.
Got it. So for number's sake, if I have a brand that's doing, let's say, $10 million a year in revenue and it's netting, let's say it's netting 150K a month in profit, how would you guys look at that and determine what to pay me on a monthly basis?
Yeah, the biggest things that go into factors for either acquisition or drive, because they're relatively the same, is what do we think the business is going to do under our ownership in the next 12 months. So obviously our cost structure looks different from, fulfillment and shipping. It looks different from how do we handle customer support operations. It looks different in terms of channels that we're gonna activate on marketing. There's some things a founder does that we may not be able to do at scale, but there's 10 other things that we're going to be able to do that a founder is not able to do. And so we try to take all of those pieces together into a single forecast, and then we use that to determine what the drive payment would be or what the acquisition offer would be.
Got it. And at that point, you guys are pretty much running everything, right? Like I could literally be sitting on a beach and not have my phone and everything is
Right.
fine.
That's
Yeah,
it.
that's exactly right.
Awesome. So how does somebody qualify for an offer? Like what makes a business enticing to OpenStore? And how do you write offers? Like what goes into that price point or the offer itself?
Yeah, so we look at businesses that are doing anywhere from 250,000 to 10 million in annual sales. The general things that we're looking for is we want to be looking to acquire growing businesses with healthy margin profiles that are cash flow positive. We're not in the business of doing turnarounds. That's a different skill set. And so we want to, acquire products that are differentiated that customers love, and we can see that feedback either in reviews, we can see it in, customer support tickets, we can see it in the repeat rate and behavior of the business. But we really want to acquire healthy unit economics because that is harder to change than some of the other levers. And then we want to accelerate that in house. So those are the biggest determining factors for us.
Mm-hmm. And what are some of the things that when you're buying a business, so like a few years ago, I bought a business and I looked at the email list, the reviews, the repeat purchase, everything was good. But as soon as I got the container, it was like I got. All the product was melted. All the machinery that it came with was broken. The sticker said 4 ounces on the deodorant, but it only weighed 3 ounces. Like, I feel like I got scammed. How do you guys avoid that? Or what would you do differently that I didn't do?
Yeah, so we have a super fantastic diligence team that, really sits down with the founder and all members of their staff to the extent they have other folks helping them run the business and really walks through end-to-end operations of that business and is looking for those exact things. Um, We have acquired over 40 businesses at this point, and so we've learned a few things along the way about our processes. Like, we've acquired businesses that didn't have any barcodes on products early on.
Wow.
It doesn't really work when you're trying to put it into a large commercial 3PL, right?
Yeah.
And so we've had to fly members of our team out to this person's house and help them label the product. We've learned from those challenges, and I've built processes around being able to identify that earlier on. It doesn't mean we're not going to be able to acquire the business or give that merchant an offer, but it's going to be a consideration and something we work with the merchant on getting through. But we've had some of those learnings, and hopefully our process today is much more smooth because of those.
Yeah. And when you think about the other aggregators in the e-commerce space, most of them, I feel like, raise too much money and will never catch up to their valuation if they're still around. The others have gone bankrupt or just flopped. And even when I was like, I remember when, we won't name them, but when they raised a ton of money, I was like, this doesn't make any sense. This is basically like an Excel sheet business. They're thinking we're going to buy a bunch of stuff. We're going to consolidate costs. That'll increase margin and everything should work. But two things. One is like they raised at a valuation where I was like, the money you're raising today, let's say it's 25 on 250. 25 is not going to get you to 100, which is what you need to get another raise after 250. And secondly, if you've got a boots company and a Tupperware company and a towel cleaning company and a headphones business, like, where in the world does optimization even play a role? Those are like four completely different supply chains, four completely different packaging vendors. Obviously you could get like shipping costs and 3PL, but like, how do you guys think about that? Like, where's the optimization there?
Yeah, so a few things I'll touch on is, first, the reason we're focused on Shopify is because we are targeting the discovery segment of direct to consumer. They who must not be named, famously focused on Amazon, and that is very intent based. It was a bit of a multiple arbitrage at the time, and granted, the Shopify space is a lot more difficult to build in. You have to own supply chain, you have to own customer support, you have to own customer acquisition, all these things that Amazon abstracts away from running your business. But there's much more value to be had if you can pull that off successfully. Second is, the way we operate. About 40% of OpenStore is technical. Think engineers, data scientists, data analytics. That is very unique in the aggregator space. We need to be able to build a platform of tools internally that allow specialized operators to have 10 times the amount of leverage they would otherwise be able to have. Otherwise, you end up in a scenario similar to the Amazon aggregator space, where they acquired 250 businesses on Amazon, but they had 1,200 employees to do so. Like, the economics of that just don't work at scale, and you don't get any of the benefit of owning a portfolio of brands and doing so. So that's been something we've been very intentional about, since we started OpenStore. Is we really need to index on differentiating with technology, not just by adding more operators to solve human driven problems.
Right.
And on the capital side, a lot of people raised a lot of capital early on. We were kind of at this unique point in the market where there was an abundance of capital that was able to be raised. And obviously, to get scale in these types of businesses, you need capital to go and give merchants compelling offers, and to be able to acquire those businesses. So it was strategic on our part to be able to, have that pool of capital to then be able to deploy on buying fantastic businesses. And that's what we've been, focused on for the last couple of years. And then the last point I'll add is just our end vision's different. We want to, acquire and grow these brands in-house, and long term, we want to, build a consumer destination where we can, help consumers discover the long tail of products, like the magic of what these Shopify stores produce. We want to increase the discoverability of, and that's, almost the antithesis of Amazon, where it's very intent based. And so those are the key differentiators for OpenStore.
Yeah, maybe I can just add on the operation side as well, Nick. I think
Sure.
what Trent mentioned at the end there is like our end goal is very different, and so for us, when we are everything from our pricing approach, how we value the business, through to our integration of the business into our systems, and then the ongoing running of it after that, is that we fundamentally don't think that a business is just a spreadsheet, right? That there is a lot that we're trying to capture, both in how we price the business, but basically based on the question of how well can we run this business. And so that's a very, very key difference. We're not simply offering an EBITDA multiple and hoping to, basically cash out later at a bigger EBITDA multiple. Our approach is to become e-commerce operations experts for these brands so that they can reach their full potential. So I think that that's a very fundamentally different approach to the maybe a little too finance heavy side of how a lot of people have tried to do a similar type of business.
Got it. And you mentioned discoverability. Is there a lot of overlap, like product or persona overlap amongst OpenStore brands? Because I remember there's a brand that sells leather boots. There's a brand that's like Jack Archer, which sells men's clothing. There's a brand that sells drones. Like, how do you envision discoverability for kind of like siloed brands like that?
Yeah. I mean, obviously, it takes a little bit of scale to be able to have a compelling consumer destination where you can, promote discoverability. We have found pockets, within the portfolio where, customers who buy pants also like to buy, shoes and wallets and leather bags and things that are adjacent to that. And maybe you're not going to be as successful selling, customers who buy pants drones, but you might be successful selling the drones people other things within the portfolio. And so, we're not trying to force any of this by any means. Like, we're not going to take a customer who has bought, Jack Archer pants and absolutely loves them and bombard them with water flossers and, things that are totally, out of the context of what they're thinking about. So we are going to be really thoughtful about it and only show customers products that we think they'd be really excited about.
And then you also mentioned you have a bunch of technical people, and you mentioned some like internal apps and softwares. So like what kind of stuff are you guys building? Or I think you said 30% of your people are technical. Like, what are they doing that that doesn't already exist in the market from a tools or software standpoint?
Sure.
Yeah.
Maybe I can talk a little bit about that. I think so. For every single function, there are things which are specifically for OpenStore, like to help us operate these brands. So many brands within one team, and then there are some to really generate performance from a particular part of the business. So one that is more infrastructure focused is what we kind of coin internally, like our promo engine, for example. And so what this is that one person or one team can effectively load up, a brand's entire promotional calendar, the discount code usage, some of the email templates, et cetera, that business is going to need for pretty much an entire year. And so that, without any touching, is going to update hero banners. It's going to update the offer code activations, et cetera, across the portfolio. And all we have to then do is monitor performance and actually make tweaks if we need to. So that's an example of more like an infrastructure piece. And I think recently a very big thing for us in terms of performance has been, for example, using AI in customer support. So, for every D2C brand, every merchant out there knows you have to look after your customers, and the bigger you grow, the more of that you have to do. And so for us, we realized that this was something that technology could really generate a lot of efficiencies for us. And so I would say today, OpenStore easily has one of the best customer support AIs for customers for e-commerce today. And today, I think we're automating around 60 to 70% of all interactions with customers. And so with really, really high customer satisfaction scores. And so that these things enable us to generate performance out of each part of the operating platform, but also allow us to gain a lot of leverage as we try and operate all of these brands every year.
That's awesome. And that 60 to 70%, did you see like a drastic cut down in headcount required for customer service as a result?
We did. I think it's also, as you're growing, you just don't need to add as many new people to the squad as well. And so as well as, the automating away of tickets, there's also the side of helping the existing agents that we have be even more valuable to OpenStore. And so we have tools that we built for new heads-up displays for them to ask questions to an AI database rather than needing to escalate. Should I do this return? Should I manage this in this way, etc. And so that allows us to not only not continue to expand that part of our operating expenses, but also get higher efficiency out of the people that we have, and then also better customer interaction so that customers are answered quicker, they're happier, and we can maximize the retention and the relationship with those customers.
Got it. And is your customer service, is that onshore or offshore?
We're nearshore today. So we
Okay,
work with a team in South America.
Nice. And how many customers or brands are you guys working with currently?
We're operating around nearly 50 brands today, and we've served almost 2 million customers.
Got it.
Hey guys, I'm super excited that this season's sponsor for limited supply is Fulfill.io. Fulfill is incredible ERP software built specifically for e-commerce businesses. Think of them as NetSuite, but specifically for e-commerce. They are meant to be a single source of truth for when your business gets really complicated. So when you can't manage your e-commerce business because you have too many Excel spreadsheets, that's where Fulfill steps in. Now, your business might be too complicated for several reasons. You might be selling through too many channels where Excel doesn't work for you anymore. You might be like, hey, I'm on Etsy, Walmart Marketplace, Amazon, Shopify, TikTok shops, Facebook shops, and Excel just doesn't work for me anymore. Or you might be like, hey, I've got too many SKUs. I'm an apparel business and I've got several thousand SKUs or several hundred that are launching each year. Or you might just have a ton of different manufacturers because you order all of your own ingredients, from coconut oil if you're a deodorant business to aloe vera if you're a shampoo business. If your business has gotten too complicated for Excel spreadsheets where you're managing it, that's really where Fulfill.io steps in. It becomes a single source of truth for your brand. You can tell things like when you look at a single SKU on your Fulfill dashboard, you can see how much product is available, how much product is on hand, how much product is incoming, how much product is outgoing, how much product is being manufactured, and what is your sales history of that SKU for a single year, plus a ton of other things. It's really an incredible single source of truth. There's small brands from Cadence that are using them to massive brands like Nectar and Hexclad. You should go check them out. It's Fulfill.io. When you're ready for an ERP because your business has gotten too complicated, go to Fulfill.io.
And how does the internal structure work? Do you have I'll give you an example. For Sharma brands, when we work with clients, we have tracks. So we've got a UX UI track, ad creative track, a growth team track, an account team track, email team track, but we don't necessarily have pods. We sort of depending on the brand, different people will be assigned. How do you guys manage that for the 50 or so brands that you have today?
Yeah, I think it's super interesting. We have a similar structure in terms of how we prioritize work. So, for example, if we find that some stores, the conversion rates need a lot more work, right? Let's say that's either degraded or we just see an opportunity when we benchmark it against other stores. We may prioritize that in our queue of work for our storefronts team. And so it's a similar way with marketing. Some brands very meta heavy. Some are more Google heavy. Some, really the retention side and the retail calendar for promotions is what needs work. Some need offer optimization. Some need pricing optimization. And so what we have is a network of tools to basically help us figure out which KPIs need work for this business. How does that fit into the operating strategy for that brand, which hopefully we've written down from integration of the store. And then if we need that work, it will get prioritized with those teams accordingly.
Got it. And so you mentioned Meta. So I think a couple of years ago, Keith mentioned about 80 to 85%, I think, was of the customers are acquired through Meta. Is that still the case today?
Today, that's no longer the case, actually. So we've diversified our channel mix quite substantially. And some of our brands have really taken off on other channels than Meta. And so as a result, the mix has kind of shifted. I'll give you an example with for example, one of our most popular brands that you mentioned earlier is Jack Archer. When we acquired that brand, it was, I think, probably around 70, 80% Meta in terms of revenue. Today, Google alone, as a new channel we really optimize for that brand, is doing 35 to 40%.
Wow.
And so, and our CRM and repeatability as we've launched new products and the like have really also bumped up the share of revenue that is no longer coming from Instagram.
Got it. And then do you know what percent of your customers are buying from multiple brands on the Open Store platform? Like they're buying Jack Archer and they're buying something else?
I think at one point, maybe 5% of our revenue was from cross-selling. And so there is definitely a decent amount of that activity going on today. Like Trent mentioned earlier, it's not something that we really force, through the system. If we don't think it's working as you launch a new product or you send a cross-sell email, etc., we're not going to force it for the sake of trying to generate cross-sell. But it is something that naturally occurs when you have a growing portfolio of products and you occasionally surface them to your customers, and sometimes they want to buy them and it fits that brand profile.
Yeah. What about, so once you guys get a brand, are you mainly only running D2C, or do you also push through Amazon, retail, B2B channels, etc.?
Yeah, so one of the kind of things for us when you submit your store for review with OpenStore for an offer is that we do want most of the sales to be coming through Shopify. And so if the majority of your sales are coming through Shopify, we're very willing to work on constructing an offer for you. And so usually the majority is going to be through D2C. However, there have been brands where, we felt that a channel is necessary to continue for this brand. And that was an important part of the success criteria for operating that brand. And so we've built the operation to do so. So there are one or two brands which have very, small Amazon presences, for example. And so we'll try and maintain those operations. But the vast, vast majority of everything we do is D2C. And that's kind of where we feel like we have the most leverage and the most opportunity most of the time with these stores.
Amazing. And then I have to ask, because I know Moise isn't here, but he would definitely ask, are you guys paying 50 individual Klaviyo bills and 50 individual Shopify bills and 50, do you get any bulk discounts? How does that work? Because Klaviyo is extremely expensive. It's not cheap.
With some vendors, we get definitely bulk discounts. So, if we sometimes we negotiate with a vendor, and we're telling them basically we're 50 customers, right? Like we're 50 accounts for you. That is quite valuable, and so we can get we can work with some amazing partners on pricing that makes sense for OpenStore specifically.
Got it. Okay, could you tell me a little bit about the process of selling a business? So let's say I decide, I've got my store, it's doing, let's call it 6 million, 500K a month. I want to come to OpenStore and sell my business. Where do I start? What do I need to know? Who am I talking to? Am I talking to anybody on the phone? Do I meet with somebody in person? How does this work?
Do you want to take this one, Trent?
Sure. So the first thing you'll do is go to open.store. There you'll just fill out a couple quick pieces of information about your business. Basically, what is your website? What's your contact information? And that allows us to get started on the offer process. And so what you'll do is you will connect Shopify data, you'll connect ad account data, and that allows our automated pricing process to run in the background. Basically structure all that data, pull out, what's the margins, how much scalability left is there in the various ad platforms? How are those performing? How have those trended over time? How much do your customers like your brand? And are they coming back? And all that information is used by our pricing and diligence team to end up constructing an offer. And then the offers are presented back to the merchants, shortly thereafter. And, our team will hop on a call and walk them through, all aspects that went into constructing that offer. I think for a lot of merchants, it's a good chance to educate them on some things about their business too. A lot of merchants haven't seen, all of that data stitched together in a cohesive way about their business before. Sometimes we, even discover things in their P&L that they didn't know. And we're able to then help them back in being even more effective at their business, at running their business. And for some businesses, they're not quite ready to sell, and that's fine. We want to maintain a relationship with them and be able to, help merchants who are building on Shopify and provide them with as much feedback and advice as we can, given we have a lot of expertise doing this.
And so once I submit, offer comes back in, I think it's like 24 hours.
Yeah.
And then that's like, so let's say it's, I don't know, you're going to buy the business. How much would you imagine a $6 million a year business would go for?
It really depends on margins. We look specifically at how much EBITDA do we think we would be generating running the business, and what does that growth look like in the next 12 months. We really want to be able to give offers to a wide variety of merchants, which means we see everything from hyper growth companies that are going to command a much higher offer from us. And we see, slow growth or even stagnant companies too, that we want to be able to, offer liquidity for. And all that should be wrapped up along with the margin profile, the repeat behavior of the business, and macro trends we see, and also like where do we think we're going to be able to lean into our strengths to operate the business, and all that comes together in an offer. And so there is a wide variance depending on those certain aspects of the business.
Got
Yeah,
it.
I think it's worth highlight. Like like we said earlier, it's not just a simple EBITDA multiple that we're going for in terms of how we price a store. And so if the entrepreneur is engaging with our team, our pricing team, and our diligence team, we're very open to having a conversation about where you as the entrepreneur see the opportunities for that store as well. So if you're like, I've not really tried these channels. I've never really expanded my product range into these things, which I think my supplier has been asking me to do, and I just haven't had the time to do it, or I haven't got the capital to do it. If you feel like you probably underinvested in landing page optimization in the past, and really you're just more the creative ad person as an entrepreneur, and that's where you've won, but you really see so many opportunities elsewhere. Our team will be able to consider all of those factors in constructing, maybe another offer after that initial scan. And so that's why it's really an open conversation of us trying to understand the business, so that we can basically take into that, and answer the question of how well would OpenStore run this business given all of our advantages in capital, technology, and team size. And so that all of those things go into that process as well. And so it really is best to if you're considering, selling your business, or exploring that as an option, just to get in touch with our team, and just to talk with them. And they're very, very proactive in making sure that they have, explained every single step, every single line of how they've thought about the business, and have that open dialogue with any entrepreneur out there.
And these are all non-binding, right? So somebody could submit, get an offer, and they're not committed to going through with it.
100%.
Yeah, it's funny, Nick. We've had some entrepreneurs come back 10 times and get 10 different offers over the course of multiple years, and you have used it almost as a health check on their business, on how are they doing? Is it going up over time? As the e-commerce and Shopify space is very community driven. And so we want to, build these relationships early on with entrepreneurs and be able to give them, direct and opinionated feedback and advice that allows them to either be more successful running their business, or, get a higher offer from OpenStore in the future if they're not quite ready today.
Yeah. I'm curious where you guys feel like the sentiment is currently, seeing 50 different brands between like consumer spending, or like I'd say the average brand today is not growing as fast as they were last year, same time. Is that an issue you think on the consumer spending side, or is that more of an issue you think on the Facebook side, or like where do you feel like there's been a shift in things where, even for example, like I feel like we work with the cream of the crop brands, and they're still, instead of growing 100%, they're growing at 60% or 40% year over year. But and the cost of Facebook keeps getting more expensive, but also what are you going to do? You're nothing. You're just going to keep spending, because where else are you going to go? Are you guys seeing similar things, or like where do you see the outlook of direct to consumer, especially with this being the main channel that OpenStore is looking at?
Sure. I think it's definitely one of the joys of operating this kind of portfolio and these direct to consumer brands is we can see across a lot of different AOVs, a lot of different categories, kind of what is happening in the market, what is the same, and then what is different. I think like what you said, definitely on the Facebook side, we've seen CPMs just even with a lot of creative refresh and a lot of creative wins, you're still seeing those rates go up, and And so that's kind of why really early on, in the last year or so, last couple of years, we really put a lot of focus on building channel expertise in other areas as well. And so, to be a successful merchant today, to be a successful entrepreneur today, you really have to have a lot more tools in your toolkit than just loading up Facebook ads and kind of maybe tweaking one landing page over time. And so, we have to be very, very good at CRM, and we have to be very good at offer optimization. We have to be very good at pricing and bundle strategies. We have to be very good at Google. We have to be very good at affiliate. We have to be very good at even organic social and being able to post enough content to generate, cheaper impressions overall for all types of ways to get traffic. And so we really see that across the board. And it's been one of the things that we have to lean into basically when it comes to diversifying ways to acquire customers. I think in terms of consumer spending overall, the macro data does seem to be true, which is that the consumer is not tapping out just yet when it comes, even if credit card debt is high and things like that. But we're not seeing an overall pullback in purchasing. And so, the main thing for us is just making sure our spend efficiencies are there. We have the channel mix and the constant continuous improvement across every channel to combat any of these inflationary factors over time.
Got it. I'm curious, what kind of technology are you guys planning to continue building or developing based on everything you guys see across the brands? I feel like I've looked on the App Store and seen you have a bunch of brands that have their own apps. And I think there's also an influencer app, right? Like a two-sided influencer marketplace where influencers can download something, but you guys also have the brand side. And then you mentioned the AI stuff. What are some of the other things you guys are making?
Yeah, I think on the app side, what you mentioned there is our influencer platform called Gumdrop, and so effectively, what this is a way for creators to effectively sign up to this app, where every single week you'll get drops of products from OpenStore that you can select to collaborate with. And so if you find a product in that drop every week that you like, we'll send it to you. You'll post at the moment, I think the most popular ask from us is to do a 3 carousel story with a CTA link in the last slide, and make one post with links to our accounts. And effectively, you'll earn commission by doing so. And if you prove to be a very good creator, on that app, we'll actually reach out to you to just re-collab with you more frequently with that product or with similar products. So it's a way for us to really scalably unlock influencers for a lot of our brands. And then we do have a consumer app just for Jack Archer, for example, and a few of our bigger brands where, repeat purchase is really high. Customers enjoy, getting the latest offers from us that way, and push notifications and the like, and maybe discoverability of the catalog is just a bit easier for them that way. So we do have some of those things in the app space. And then in terms of on the horizon, like I mentioned, we've had a lot of success with the customer support cost reduction side and quality side. And I think one thing that's on every marketer's minds right now is definitely generative AI in creative. And I think that's a very interesting space. We're definitely starting to dabble there in how we create content and assets for, nearly 50 stores. And so, there's a lot going on in the technology space. And it's why a lot of us love working at OpenStore. It's that we get to be on the cutting edge of these things. And I'll just add on top of that, though, we have a network of incredible vendors in the Shopify ecosystem as well who work with us. So, maybe just to give a couple shout outs to some of them, like, for price testing, we've mentioned that. Drew and the intelligence team have been pretty instrumental for us in kind of learning that technology. Yeah, very, very big fan. Really great guys. And I know you're very familiar with Format, for example. Format we've used for some of our stores to allow performance marketers to mock up landing pages very quickly if they need to test into some new concepts. And so we're really working on the edge here of technology to try and find the best tools. And if we don't see one, we have the incredible engineering power to go and build one. And I think that's really what we're about and why OpenStore fundamentally is a technology company.
Yeah. Are OpenStore's brands on TikTok Shop?
Some are today. the creative requirements to do TikTok well are just very immense, and so it's not a channel that we've leaned into 100% just yet, but it is something we're exploring for some of our brands and playing with today.
Yeah, Nick,
Got
I'll tell you one of the challenges of being an aggregator and owning and operating so many stores is when there's these new channels like TikTok shops. They occasionally have constraints, like you can only have 5 businesses
Yeah.
registered through a single EIN.
Yeah.
And, a lot of these channels aren't purpose built for, operators with our use case. So occasionally we run into some friction kind of getting these things live. But that's just the way the world works.
Yeah, no, it makes sense. Yeah, off the back of that, I was going to ask, like, how open are you guys to testing out new technologies? Like whether, like Amped, for example, we use this company called Amp for pop-ups. I'm sure it's different because you have essentially 50 clients that you would onboard. How do you guys go about testing out new things and validating new tech?
Yeah, I think the joy of having so many stores is that we can really try a lot of things at the same time. That's one thing on different stores without interrupting performance too much. We are trying amps right now as well, actually, on
Nice.
On a couple of our stores. And so, for the email team, if it's about email capture, they might make a recommendation. This is what I heard from Nick on the latest limited supply podcast. Should we check this out? Should we have a look? And in other places, like I went to a conference and we heard about this, or this is just the hot thing that everyone's talking about right now. And so the beauty of having, very strong functional expertise is that people also have the time to go and find these new tools and opportunities, and also understand, are they working, right? Really monitor the performance very carefully on some of the stores. If suddenly, we're using Format and those landing pages are just performing just way better across this category, why would we not try it on the others as well? And so it's things like that where, having the functional expertise has some significant advantages for us as well in keeping up on the latest here, and trying a lot of things at the same time to figure out what's the best way to improve performance.
Totally. And last question, I'm interested to learn, especially like working under the leadership that you guys have. If you were on the advisory board of a consumer brand doing 5 to 50 million a year in revenue, are there any nuggets you would tell them based on the experience, the things you've seen and learned at OpenStore, that you would make sure that are ingrained in their brain so that they don't make mistakes that you see brands coming to you that get rejected have made?
Oh, interesting question. Good question. Well, I think so. Before OpenStore, I helped to build a company called HelloFresh for nearly 10 years. And so I think a lot of the things I experienced in that journey is very similar to what we're learning a lot here. And I think one of them is, as you scale, don't forget about your most loyal customers. Make sure that your channel mix and your customer support, your customer experience management is really, really great. Retention is never a weakness. It's always a strength. And so making sure you're taking the best care of customers all the time, and make sure you have the right setup in terms of metrics to track as you're scaling your business will make your life a lot easier on that journey, but then also when you get to the next level. So, taking a brand from, like 100,000 a year in sales to $1 million is one thing. To go from $1 million to 5 million is another. And from 5 to 20 to 50 million is another. And the one thing that is going to be a constant through that whole journey is ensuring that you're looking after your customer experiences and maintaining that as you scale and focus on other things. And so that would be the biggest thing. You can never cheat the customer experience. Always focus on it, build it, add value to your users and your customers. And that would be my personal biggest thing.
Trenton, anything else you'd add?
Well, I think, as you're building out the team to be able to grow and scale a business, whether it's 50 million, 5 million, or 100 million, is really making sure you're bringing in an incredible, talent base of operators. And, one thing we've been doing here at OpenStore recently is making sure everyone has an understanding of how their work ladders up to the performance of any one of the individual stores, and really educating folks, from customer support to marketing to supply chain. Everyone's work matters, and
Totally.
showing them,
I feel like
they directly impact
the thing that gets
P&L of a
me
business,
most
and the growth is really
excited
important.
about OpenStore is the fact that you guys are so like innovative in your own tech. I think it's pretty cool that, because you're not just an aggregator, you're not just an agency, you're not just a software company, you're kind of in between all three, where you guys are buying the companies also in an interesting way. I know like Keith is involved in a few companies like Tyto, for example, that also probably work closely with OpenStore. And it's just cool to see that you guys are like building legitimate tech. It's not just like copycat tech, or it's not, it's not like a URL shortener. It's like stuff that's actually useful. Like the stuff you talked about with being able to change, 50 different websites, heroes, for promotions. That's awesome. I wish we had that technology. And we could do that across our client sites when we're running 20 different Black Fridays this year.
Right.
But yeah, very cool. Don't forget to definitely go check out open.store, but Lukas and Trenton also are going to fly 10 people out to Miami. So go to my.open.store/limited supply for a chance to win a free trip to Miami. The first 10 listeners who qualify for an offer will enjoy a weekend getaway in Miami for the full complimentary valuation from OpenStore, and you'll just get to have fun in Miami. Who doesn't want to go to Miami?
Absolutely.
So definitely check that out.
Absolutely.
Yeah, my.open.store/limited supply. Submit for an offer. It's non-binding. And Lukas and Trenton will greet you there at the airport, holding your name on a sign and take you home to Miami in a limo. Anything else you guys want to add before we get out of here?
Sure. No, I mean, thanks for that. I think we really feel like our mission at OpenStore is to reward these entrepreneurs for their hard work, right? So if you've made the effort to create this store, our job is to continue that legacy and make sure we're operating that brand long after you've moved on to whatever's next in your life. And so, like you said, we'd love to fly you down if you've heard this podcast and you're interested in getting a valuation on your store. Connect with our team. Go to my.open.store/limited supply, and we'll fly you out. If you want to hang out with us, that's cool. If you don't, enjoy Miami and eat some great food. Go to the beach. Either way, we'd love to hear from you and get in touch with us. And thanks so much for having us today, Nick.
Amazing. Thanks for coming on. That's a wrap for this week, and we'll see you next Wednesday for episode 11.
Thanks, Nick. It's been great.
Thanks for tuning in. We'll be back next time to cut through the noise in CPG, retail, and e-commerce.
And if you enjoyed this episode, then why not share it with a friend? And be sure to subscribe on whatever platform you listen to your podcasts on.